Okay, hey, welcome to another episode of Cosmic Conversations with Stan and Ken. And we got a special program for you tonight, and you can see that we have a few extra new folks hanging out with us. Stan's going to take over here in a second, and he's going to talk to you about an approach to energy healing in meditation work. And Stan, take it away.
Okay. I'd like to welcome everyone for today's session. Today's session, you will be introduced to a method referred to as GPE, but I want you to know that the GPE stands for God Presence Energy, and it is a bridge form from the original teaching from Master Lu Ming Dang, which was called Human and Universal Energy, HUE for short. A friend of mine who was the translator for the Master, who trained, he received a download. I believe it was in 2019, which he received in a bridge form from the original form, which is more concise, more direct, and easier to learn. Faster, I think, is one of the most favorable attributes of this method because the need is getting greater now. It's very indicative in the way that the founder taught because he would always change the techniques from class to class. And if that's confusing, what he would do is that whenever he started a new class, he would have a favorite saying. He would state that everything that you learned before, forget it. And myself and many others was very confused because why is he telling us to forget everything? It's like he wanted us to make a fresh start at every class we went to. Plus, he was also changing the name of the class. He went from the International Research Institute of Human and Universal Energy, which sounds very professional, right? To spiritual human yoga, which a lot of students complain about and say, we're not teaching yoga. We're going to have people calling us up asking for yoga equipment. Like, do you sell yoga mats? And sure enough, that's what happened. So, and then from there, he changed it to something very abstract, mankind, enlightenment, love. And that took people aback. And then his final suggestion really upset a lot of students because I remember the Spanish students actually got up and walked. He said he was contemplating of changing the name to the new people of Vietnam. So the Spanish people said, look, we're not Vietnamese. What is he talking about? So they got so upset that they walked out of the room. I laughed myself because I kind of knew he was plotting it. He was joking for a purpose. But he's trying to give this more of a universal format because you can call it GPE, you can call it EPG, Energy of God's Presence, or you can call it the presence of energy of God. But we simply call it GPE because I think it has a nice rhyme to it. So when you learn this, basically it could be taught in a two-class format. So hopefully about a month from today, we'll get together again and we'll go over the second part as well as we'll address any questions you may have from the practice because we need feedback. Understand all of us are sort of co-founders in a sense. All of us are pioneers because none of us, as we grew up as children, I don't think your parents taught you about energy today. Your parents teach you about meditation. I don't think so. So we have a lot of students now that's actually teaching their children, their newborn children, how to meditate. So it's setting a new precedent. Okay? And this is part of the paradigm shift that we're all experiencing. I understand another principle too, in terms of the ideal or the concept of universal energy applies to all the wavelengths, all the combined frequencies of one universe. If there are other universes, we'll worry about that when we encounter them. We're looking at the one universe that we happen to live in. So there's basically just one energy, but there's many approaches to this energy. So if you practice another form of energy, then that's fine as long as you keep the two methods separate. Do not integrate. When you use universal energy or the GPE, that's fine. And then later on, you use whatever method that you choose to use. Now, the topics for today, and you want to excuse me because I want to make sure we have a lot of material to cover. So my pace is going to be quite rapid. Naturally, Ken is going to upload this to Cosmic Connections. So if you need to review, that's fine.
Hey,
Um,
Stan, real quick, I want to warn you. They did cut us down on time again. We're only going to have 40 minutes from the time I hit record. So just so
okay,
you know,
okay, good.
that probably
Thanks.
gives us till about 7:10.
Okay, good. So the three topics that we're covering today would be number one, the meditation, the GPE meditation. The other would be the opening of the intuitive potential. And the third is going to be your method of practice and application regarding energy transfer. So before we start with the lecture, I'd like to do a very brief, about 30-second meditation to clear our mind. Okay, so you can do this with eyes open or closed. Okay, ready and begin. Okay, finish. Okay, now we'll speak on the topic of the meditation. The GPE meditation is the same as it was taught in the method of HUE. Three basic steps in the meditation. Okay, the first step, and by the way, you can practice this form of meditation in any position, any posture that you're comfortable with, sitting in the chair, laying on a recliner, in bed, or whatever. It doesn't matter. Now, again, the three steps. The first step is that you want to, with eyes open, inhale through the nose, exhale from the mouth. We're speaking of a very deep inhale, but also a very deep exhale. The ratio is about, I would say, 80% inhale, 100% exhale. That's sort of the ratio that we can follow. You do that 3 consecutive times. That is the first step. Second step, again, with eyes open, you're going to clear your mind, empty your mind to the best of your ability, okay, and just stay in a meditative state of mind for a minimum of 5 minutes, but no more than 30 minutes. Again, you clear, empty the mind to the best of your ability, and that time frame is 5 minutes minimum, no more than 30 minutes. Now, naturally, this is not as easy as it said. You're going to have thoughts come into your mind. So the master used to always remind us, when you have thoughts coming in that will distract you, simply stay detached. Don't follow the thought. Okay, even the thought may have a certain emotion attached to it. Just let it come, like you're looking at a movie screen. Let it come and go. So stay in that state of detachment. You'll notice something very profound as you practice this. Starting off, you may only be able to do 30 seconds of pure emptiness and clarity. But as you become more familiar with it, then you'll start to increase the time where, in some cases, we've had students say that they can go 10 minutes without a single thought. But remember, this is the objective, and you want to be very patient as you practice. But the ideal, the objective, is to starting off meditation is to have a clear, empty mind. The reason for this is so that we can align with the stream of energy, and we can also receive downloads, thoughts, with a clear mind, okay, without any bias, without any prejudice. So it's very important when we start off with a clear, empty mind in terms of the practice of meditation. Now, that is the second step. After you finish the meditation, let's say you practice for 10 or 15 minutes, you can actually have a timer. When the timer goes off, then you simply repeat step number one. Deep inhale through the nose, deeper exhale through the mouth, 3 consecutive times. Any questions so far? Very simple, very direct. Okay. Now, in terms of your times of practice, we all have busy lives. So what we found out is that when you first get up in the morning is an ideal time because it sort of sets the precedent for your day, starting off your day with energy. Okay. I can't think of a better way. Okay. All right. So if you need to set your clock back to maybe 30 minutes or so, don't worry about it because it's well worth it. The other time is before you go to bed. No, not before you go to bed, excuse me, it's before you go to sleep in bed. Because what happens is that as you're taking the energy, normally it helps you sleep much better. And usually sometimes you may have either lucid dreaming or you may get download information that you can use in your daily life. So those two times we found to be more favorable. If you have time during the day, that's fine. But we find out at least with those two times, you'll have at least two opportunities to practice. We definitely encourage you to practice at least starting up 2 times a day. Let's say if you're on vacation or you're on a weekend and you have nothing to do, you can practice this meditation as many times as you want to. Okay, there's no limit. Okay, as long as you remain in a time frame of 5 minutes minimum, no more, maximum 30 minutes. Now, also, since you're going to have an adjustment, what we would call an initiation or activation or opening, your system will change, whereby you can receive a higher frequency of energy and you can also transmit that energy. So let's say if you're dealing with work and you're very busy, but you don't have time to do the full 3 steps, you can do simply the first step, just deep inhale, deeper exhale. When you do that 3 times in a row, you're not the normal, your system is not as it was before. You're able to bring in a higher frequency of energy, which is a positive energy, exhale all the negative energy. Now, you should try this yourself in order to get feedback, okay, in order to research yourself and see if there's any difference. Sometimes you find yourself getting upset at something, or it could be at work or maybe a personal issue. Then just isolate yourself someplace, then perform the 3 inhale and exhale. Now, naturally, if you have the time, you can do the full 3-step meditation, but a lot of times we're not able to do so. I remember when my father learned, he found out that he wouldn't treat himself. He wouldn't do an energy healing on himself because he would forget the technique. But he gave me feedback that when he practiced in bed, he would go to sleep the entire night and he felt so refreshed when he woke up in the morning. So if that happens to you, the energy that you're using has its own intelligence. So if you need to sleep, that's fine. When you wake up, there's no need for you to practice the third step. There's no need for you to do the inhale and exhale because you slept, an entire night. If you happen to cat nap, then when you wake up from a cat nap, then it's different. Then practice the 3 inhale and exhale. Now, again, with the energy being intelligent, we have a friend, Ken and I, Bill Thomas. Bill Thomas has a noteworthy experience. He was asked, he's the technician for, what is it, Ken?
BJC.
Kidney dialysis.
That's what he still does.
Yeah, and his boss asked him to do a double shift. He had to work the midnight shift, and he wasn't prepared. So what he was doing as a practitioner of universal energy, he would sneak into the men's room, sit down, do a 5-minute, and come out. But his boss started looking at him and said, "I'm noticing something very peculiar about you. You walk into the restroom looking run down, and you come out like the Energizer Bunny. Are you taking drugs? What are you doing?" And then he introduced, "No, I've learned this meditation, and it helps revitalize my system." So because of that, she actually came and learned the system herself. Okay? So it's important as you have something of benefit and value that you spread the word when communication comes about. So a lot of us, when we did this, many of us were very skeptical. We didn't know about this method, but we were very curious because a lot of people that came to St. Louis at that time was from different countries. We had people coming in from countries in South America, Western, Eastern Europe. We said, why are these people paying airlines tickets, paying hotel to come learn from this person? So that sparked the curiosity. Then when we started to practice what we were learning, and sure enough, we began to understand, particularly when we would travel to their country, because we picked their brain. I picked the brain from a lady who, Lucita Ray, who is the director of a center in Caracas, Venezuela. Okay, she helped her father who was suffering from cancer. I think it was bone cancer. The doctor only gave him about 6 months to live. And she happened to be walking in the mall and she saw somebody standing over the person that was sitting doing a healing. So after the person finished, she walked up and said, "What are you doing? That looks very interesting." So she said, "Oh, this is a method called universal energy." To make a long story short, she learned it. And the doctors actually invited her and her father to the hospital because they gave this man a death sentence. So they're wondering, plus they're testing him anyway, how did he recover? And she shared the story, and they ended up coming, a group of doctors coming from Venezuela and learning in St. Louis, Missouri, of all places. So it's a lot of situations like that that really turn your ears. There's got to be something to this. But remember, one thing that's very profound, and I should mention it at this time, actually, you're not learning anything new. You are learning something or relearning something that you already know. You're not giving a new capacity. You are becoming awake of the capacity that you were born with. You were inborn with the capacity to use universal energy. But we've been under suppression for so long, given ideals and concepts that limit our potential. We have not been given the truth of what our potential truly is. Okay. So now we're going through a stage of a paradigm shift where people are waking up and say, "Oh my God, my capacity is of the divine." Okay. You and the creator are one. Your soul has this ability. It's just the physical body, the physical brain has been led astray and said, "No, you don't have this ability." Okay. But now that, as we go through this paradigm shift, there is an awakening that's taking place globally. Okay. So again, this is something that you've already know. This is why Master says, when you come to class, it's not out of coincidence. Your higher self, you want to call it your soul, led you here to learn. Why? So that you can better help yourself and help humanity. Okay. If you try to use this energy for any self-benefit or any purposes dealing with greed or selfishness, you cut yourself off from the energy. You're not being punished, but you will not be able to access the higher energy. The higher energies only operate on the principle of compassion and divine love. unconditional love. Anything lower than that, it will not work. Cut your own stuff off. So I want to mention that. So as we go on to the next one, no questions, I'd like to introduce the intuitive potential. The intuitive potential is a term that was downloaded, to Mr. Boutrain. And in the beginning phases, I want you to realize this because you will probably meet people that learned from the original teaching. And in the original teaching, they incorporated what's called the opening of the chakra. This is the way the master explained it. Now this is replaced. It's not really replaced, but the term now is intuitive potential. When we apply our intuition, we're actually communicating to our soul. When our soul is getting information from the higher deities or the source or the universe, it downloads us. And if we're receptive, if we're open, we get this information in our brain. Okay. So what we're doing is that we are not developing in a sense, but we are enhancing the potential of our intuition. When you do so, do not be surprised when you start to get very vivid download information coming in. You may think, oh, I'm talking to myself, okay? But it's information coming in that would be instrumental in helping you go through and navigate through your life. Now, I mentioned this in one of our previous GP classes that there was a period that I went through. I don't have it now, this experience, because it was very weird. I would just be sitting down and all of a sudden I would imagine myself having discussions with Neil deGrasse Tyson or other physicists, or other doctors, and they're questioning me and I'm giving them answers according to the principle of universal energy. And at first I was thinking, am I having a psychic breakdown here? Am I talking to myself? But it took me months to realize that no, what you're doing is that you're telepathically communicating with these other minds. See, in terms of the mind, we're all connected. It's just from our physical body that we look be different. But in terms of the mind field, we're all connected. That connection, is never broken because everything is energy. But I think when I reflected on it, I said, there's a reason. Perhaps in the future, I would have an opportunity to meet these doctors and we would have discussion because they have the theory. What they lack, however, is the hands-on application. That's where we come in because we have the hands-on application and we will be able to work with the physicians. The compromise, I said compromise, but the goal, the objective, one of the major objectives of this teaching is to form a bridge between science and spirituality so that we have concepts that operate in both. And you see that happening now as we're speaking. As many physicists as well as other scientists is actually exploring consciousness. They're calling this consciousness, but actually they're researching spirituality. And it's very hard for them to get hands on how do we apply this. We understand the principles to a certain extent. This is where, as practitioners, we will be able to converse with them and help them to guide their research. Matter of fact, I got a download about a month ago. It says our school, our practice, very important in terms of guiding the scientists and also the capitalists in terms of the research on AI. Because if they do it in a proper way, in a humane way, it will be an asset for the whole humanity. However, if they veer off and they do it in the opposite way, it could be a very strong detriment to us. It can be very harmful, so to speak. Okay. So they say this is one of the areas that I share with you guys. They gave me 4 areas that we should concentrate on in terms of our energy transfer. And artificial intelligence research is one of the 4. Okay, so any question on the intuitive potential? There's not much to work on in terms of practicing it. It's just a byproduct of the opening. Okay, now with that, I want you to look my way and I will perform the activation of opening of the intuitive potential. All I want you to do is sit quietly, look in my direction, and clear your mind. Okay, ready? And begin. Okay, finish. Now there's 3 major conditions that I failed to mention, but I believe that we're all on the same accord. In order for you to apply the GPE, one condition is that you should use humility. Always understand your limitation as a human being. Okay. Second is that you want to have an open mind and open heart, which I feel that everyone here would agree. Okay. This is again the conditions for you to be able to use effectively GPE. The third one is truthfulness, and that is you're able to go along your path of spiritual development in a manner that's truthful to yourself. If you're doing something that's not working, or something in error, you're able to recognize it and make correction. Okay. Plus, the truthfulness also helps to what I would call control the ego, because once we become proficient at things, humans are very easy to fall under the prey of the ego. They feel the ego, and what happens is that their mind closes, and they absolutely believe they're right. But however, if you're humble, you always know what your limitation is. If you're open, you always know that you can learn something. Even if you master something, there's always a higher level. Okay? If you're truthful, you want to be able to follow that path that would allow you to develop. So again, it's humility, open mind, open heart, truthfulness. Now we have an acronym for this we call HOT, H-O-T. So we have a favorite joke that says, okay, do you have the H-O-T? You're hot? Okay, let's get busy now. Okay. So now we do the work. Okay, the first category in terms of the energy transfer, when you perform the energy transfer, you want to just imagine, this is again sort of like a visualization, but you have a concept of the light of creation, the light of creation. For the first step, what you do is that you try to be one with the empty space around you. Now, it's not something you have to put much effort in, because if you're used to doing the meditation, you're set up for that when you do the second step. You're clearing the mind. So automatically you're being one with the environment. Second, you think of the light of creation. So to transfer energy to yourself, just think of your body, or you can think of your head. Okay. The time limit is for minimum 10 seconds to 1 minute. Now that time frame works in this way. Let's say within 30 seconds, all of a sudden you get a feedback. You get a strong tingling or a heat. That means that energy has returned to you, so you can stop at that point. We call this the return flow, or the energy, or the back flow of energy. But you have that time frame, 10 seconds to 1 minute. However, if you receive a back flow of energy, and you will be able to detect this, you stop. So normally it won't take anywhere even close to a minute in the classes we've been conducting over here. Usually because you guys are coming later, energy has already been developed to a point where you can grasp it very quickly. If you're doing an individual, the same thing. You can put hands on them if you wish to, but again, our technique is more remote. So let's say you're sitting across from a person. Okay, this person has a problem with headaches, for instance, okay, and they're willing to receive a healing. You simply look at the person's body, or you can focus on their head. Okay, 10 seconds to 1 minute. Once you get the feedback, return flow of energy, you stop. Now, basically, you only need to do the energy one time a day. Now, this is where the intuitive potential comes into play. Let's say later on that day, there's a lady that you've given energy to, Sarah Lee, for instance, right? You've given her energy transfer in the morning. Late that night, Sarah Lee just comes to your mind. Okay. This is an effect of the intuitive potential. Send energy again. Okay. Because that's why you're connected. Now, I give you a beautiful example. This happened years ago before I even understood anything about the intuitive potential, being in alignment with the energy of the universe, the energy of God. There was a student who was a linguist. She taught English, and she would go to China about once a year. When she's in China, she's already taken a class from our center. And she said, Stan, something very peculiar I wanted to share with you. In the morning, after I had my coffee, my breakfast, I'd walk over to my balcony, and energy would automatically leave my head and it would go toward the north. And I said, whoa. And she says, what is this? And I said, I don't know, because I never heard of this before. Usually you set it with intention energy, but her energy was working like automatic pilot. It would just leave her head. She said it happened about 3 to 4 days in succession. And later on, she did research. She found out that there was a health outbreak in that area that needed the energy. So it gave me an idea of the principle that we will achieve in the future, that we will carry this vibration wherever we go. And in a lot of cases, automatically, it may work automatically. It may just leave us because it's the energy that we're all connected to. All right, so any questions on the self and individual energy transfer? Very simple and direct. Okay?
So Stan,
Mhm.
you don't have to lay hands on anymore. I mean,
No.
that's okay. So, uh, I kind of asked because that was a tactile thing that you got. I mean, you could feel it when you would get the energy back, and it was. I'm going to be able to detect that here.
Yes, it takes practice. We
Okay.
don't expect you to succeed the first time off. But the benefit of this is this. I'm going to skip to another category, food and beverage. Everything that you eat, even if it's a piece of chewing gum, make it a habit to send energy to it before you put it in your mouth. Everything you drink, send energy to it, because you do that frequently. We eat and we drink frequently through the day. This will give you an opportunity to practice the return flow of energy. You'll be able to detect. So some people it's very pronounced, for others it may be very subtle. But the more you use the energy, the more you can recognize it. And it may be a little slightly different for each person, because our nervous system is different and very unique. Some people are highly sensitive. Some people are not sensitive at all. But you'll notice it. Let's say if you don't have much sensitivity, the energy tends to vibrate and get stronger because it's kind of hitting you on the head. Says, okay, you're done. So even though you're not that sensitive, if it increases, then okay, it's time. Okay. If not, if you don't receive any feedback for a full minute, you only need 1 minute of clarity for that energy to complete its job. Okay, because this energy works outside of time and space. It only takes 1 minute, but you are a practitioner. They're giving you a time frame of 10 seconds minimum to 1 minute. However, if I was to give you an average, I would say the average, I've had students just learn this course, and they say within 15, 20 seconds, they move on. They get the feedback right away. Okay. So this is why it's very good for us to share when we meet again in approximately a month. Okay, now in terms of your collective energy transfer, there's 2 ways to do a collective energy transfer. This is where a number of people to address them. One way is to have them on a list. Okay, the other way is them to be in front of them on a site. Okay, I'll explain both situations. Let's say you make a list of all your family members, your direct family members as well as your extended family, from newborn to elderly. It doesn't make any difference. You only need 2 people minimum, and there's no maximum. So we've had some people say, oh, I have a huge family, particularly in Southeast Asia, where the families are more intact and communicable. Well, what if I have 5 sheets of paper and I have 500 people? And the master says, fine. You have all 5, it doesn't matter. There's no limit. Now, when you look at the paper, from 10 seconds to 1 minute, the same principle applies. All of them will receive the energy. And this is a remarkable facet of this energy. Let's say you have some people on this list, they have a kidney problem. Some people on the list may have a problem in terms of their circulatory system, maybe with the heart. When the energy that you're sending is received, the energy has its own intelligence. It will draw from the organs that need that energy. This is what we refer to as the combined frequency. So you don't have to worry about the specifics. Okay, once you send the energy, even if it's an individual, they may have multiple problems, heart issue, stomach issue, bone issue, whatever. When you send that energy frequency that operates that one system will automatically be drawn, almost magnetically. You see how the energy works? So you don't have to worry about the specifics. This is a fascinating concept, and I know for some people, they could be sort of skeptical, and I don't blame them. But when we have people who actually work, nurses, for instance, work, and other doctors, more doctors overseas, particularly in Western Europe, Southeast Asia, and they contested it. They said they actually put it in the library and tested it. Yes, you send the energy, and if they suffer from multiple situations and conditions, all of those conditions will be addressed. The energy has the combined frequency, and when those organs are undernourished by not having sufficient energy, or if there's a blockage, they will automatically attract vibration of the frequency that's needed. Okay. So in that way, it eliminates a lot of the guesswork, and they can put it through the technology in order to.
Hey, Stan, I think this thing's going to cut us off in about a couple seconds here. Sorry about that. I didn't realize that they'd cut the time on the free one again. So Rob, I guess you have stop it. I guess you have a paid version since you use Zoom a lot.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you want to do this again, I can send out the link from SLU. They won't even notice it. Then we can
they're wanting like $13 a month or something.
Yeah, let me suggest something. Do you have what do they call it on the telephone that you can have reporters? We can continue this on the telephone. I only got about 5 minutes.
FaceTime. Ken, do you have everybody's list on the list?
Hang on a sec.